And thanks for attending, everyone, the meeting of the Cabinet tonight on Wednesday, the 15th of December 2021. For those that don't know me, my name is Councillor Paul Foster. I'm the leader of the Council. I'm the chair of the meeting tonight. Councillor Mick Titherington is the Vice Chair and Deputy Leader. Members of the Cabinet are present here at the Civic Centre, and also present with us are the officers required to support the meeting. Any other members or officers in the Civic Centre should please switch on their microphone to indicate if they do wish to speak, and then switch off once they have finished to avoid any feedback. Due to the current COVID restrictions, other members of the Council are having to dial in via Microsoft Teams, and good evening to you all. If you wish to speak at the appropriate time, please raise your hand and Darren will call you in. All members on Teams are asked to keep their microphones on mute, because we do get feedback otherwise. The reports of the individual reports were presented by the relevant portfolio holder, after which I will bring the item into Cabinet for further discussion. Once Cabinet has considered the report, I will then invite comments from other members of the Council. Any members of the public in attendance will also be invited to speak at the appropriate time, and again, they just need to indicate they wish to do so. I have to unfortunately remind members of the public that they are restricted to speaking for no longer than a total of 5 minutes during the whole meeting. Please all do note that this meeting is recorded and live streamed on YouTube. The web link for this is displayed on the agenda for the meeting. Before we start, there's just one quick item to update Cabinet on, and that's we've accepted the Mayor and the Scrutiny Chair and myself have accepted an urgent item to be added to the agenda tonight, the delivery of the improvements at Vernon Carris Sports Club, and that will be debated and presented by Councillor Matthew Tomlinson before we go into private session. So, without further ado, agenda item 1: apologies for absence. All members of the Cabinet are present. There are therefore no apologies for absence. Agenda item 2, the minutes of the last meeting. I have the minutes of the last meeting in front of me for approval. I'm happy to propose. Do we have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Titherington. Any members of the Cabinet got any comments on the minutes? No. Any members not on the Cabinet have any comments on the minutes? Councillor Ogilvie.
Thank you, Chair. Just in connection with minute 62 regarding the home playground, it was just to confirm that I did receive a written response to my question at the last Cabinet meeting. I got a response from the 151 officer to confirm that it would be paid for through borrowing, although it could be paid for via cash balances at this particular moment in time. But if a suitable new Section 106 contribution came into the Council, then that would be used to fund the playground. So thanks for that. Thanks for that response.
Thanks, Alan. Any other comments from anyone? Right. Can we vote to accept the minutes, please? Right, good, that's unanimous. Agenda item 3 is declarations of interest. If a member has a pecuniary interest, they are requested to leave the meeting completely. The member can rejoin the meeting following the completion of the said item in question. Does any member of the Cabinet have any interests to declare? No. Yeah, just before we move on, I think it's Councillor Martin, I think, is currently displaying Liverpool Road on his phone, and it's on the screens here. Keith, can you please turn that link off, if you can, please? It's rather off-putting. Right, thank you. Right, moving swiftly on. Cabinet forward, agenda item 4, sorry, the Cabinet forward plan and the notice of executive decisions. As we've previously said, the Cabinet Forward Plan is accessible via the web link on the agenda, and hard copies have been provided to members at the meeting here tonight. I'm happy to propose that we note this plan, and do I have a seconder? Cheers, Councillor Titherington. So a couple of points that members will note on the Cabinet. There is a huge amount of decisions to be undertaken in the next few weeks, and they're all noted within the plan. It does, we know we're busy and there's an awful lot going on. One thing I have noticed, Daniela, is there's a significant number of IT decisions that need making in the next week or two, it looks like. So clearly, we'll be waiting for those to come through. But just to be clear to the Cabinet, those are executive decisions that Aniela will be making in conjunction with the appropriate directors. Any other comments from anybody on the forward plan? No. Good. So that forward plan is noted. Any questions from members not on Cabinet? No. Good. We will move on. Okay. Agenda item 5 is the community service update, and Councillor Aniela Belinsky-Gelder is to present this item. Aniela.
Thanks, Chair. I cannot emphasise enough how impressed I am with this report and the work of the communities team over the last 12 to 18 months throughout the COVID and beyond. This report covers a huge range of projects which the team is working on, not only the community hubs, but lots of standalone projects under the remit of Councillor Mick Titherington and I. I'd like to take a few minutes to run through a few things, but first of all, point 7 shows the range of functions that the communities team now undertake. First of all, there's the schools liaison, supporting early years children into school after COVID. The report also mentions the school uniform bank, kitting out this year 118 families with school uniforms, and I've spoken to some of the families which have received those uniforms. Active health team supporting inter-school sporting events and the healthy eating programme. There was also a digital schools programme which we decided to do, and we saw the distribution of 151 tablets to kids and families during COVID. We've established a youth council, and we now have approximately 30 14 to 17-year-olds setting their own priorities in the council. Health and wellbeing. Although mental health isn't a statutory responsibility of South Ribble, we have invested in mental health services for the benefit of our residents, working closely with Mind, establishing a programme accrediting mental health first aiders. We have a one front door approach under developing resilient communities, which allows people to access whichever services they require through the council's gateway, the call centre. And South Ribble Borough Council has provided 1,800 food parcels, collected and delivered over 590 prescriptions, and over 400 residents have been supported to access to additional support. The Holiday Hunger Scheme continues to support families which have suffered through cuts to social safety net, such as universal credit and passported benefits, and South Ribble have now provided 67,970 meals to date through the Holiday Hunger Scheme. Finally, and I could go on, but the office has set up a holiday and food programme in 2021 for children who receive free school meals during term time. But I and the Labour group are proud to say that no child was turned away. So I'd like to go on to the community hubs element now. And regarding the community hubs, which makes up a large portion of this report, I can provide an update on the review of the hubs, which was carried out throughout October and extended for a second opportunity in early November. Again, I'm extremely pleased with the feedback from members. 87% felt engaged in their community hub. 90% said they feel they can influence decisions in their hub. 90% said they feel the decisions made in their hubs have a positive impact in their local area. 93% said they feel their hubs meets the needs and priorities locally. And finally, testament to the officers, 93% of respondents said they feel supported by the community development team. I don't think I could have hoped for higher scores than that for the review for the community hubs. And that was just after a 12 months trial period. And hopefully now, with the priorities of the report, we'll move into like a substantial part of the community hub stuff. The comments also provided future opportunities for further engagement. The autonomy, and I feel, is extremely positive about the future of the hubs. Top scores for officers, chairs and vice chairs. So I'd like to say thank you to the chairs and vice chairs of the community hubs. In our ambition to be fully transparent, all the budget information is available in this report, including the excellent Boost Fund projects, which have enabled long-standing projects to see the light of day, but also providing budget information means each member of the hub can envisage future project opportunities and determine realistic goals. The communities team tick every box in the corporate outcomes: an exemplary council, thriving communities, a fair local economy that works for everyone, and good homes, green spaces, healthy places. A massive thank you and well done to the team, and a special thank you to Rebecca Heap and Jennifer Mullin. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Aniela. Where'd you start with this? This is one of the most pleasing reports that I've read all year, and we've discussed as a cabinet, haven't we, on numerous occasions, the stellar work that the officers and the team and Aniela and Mick have done in supporting the COVID recovery. And then I challenge any member of this council, any member of the public, not to read that report and not just be impressed on every single page. So Aniela, on behalf of the cabinet, thank you. You know, the work that the community hubs do is wonderful. I love the way, and everybody knows I've been converted on this, I love the way that they're all so different and that they have managed from bottom up, and I'm I'm more than happy to take that one on the chin. I've said that to you before. The outputs, some of the outputs are astonishing. They really are astonishing. And you know, this is just the start, and it's it's honestly, it's one of the greatest things, one of the greatest achievements, I think, at the end of this administration in 18 months' time that we're able to look back on, because we're having a huge impact on our local communities. And you just need to look at some of the statistics that you see in there, you know, and you know, 60-odd thousand meals provided to school kids in such a short period of time. And one of the greatest challenges that this country's ever faced is the COVID pandemic, which isn't over yet. And this council stood up and was counted. And I'm extremely proud of all the officers. I know Jen Mullin's here, and the officers should be exceptionally proud of what they've achieved. So thank you. The proof of the pudding's in the eating, Aniela. And again, you had the courage of your convictions to go out and, you know, ask the hubs what they genuinely thought and got the feedback from councillors. And the numbers that they've demonstrated there and the feedback is astonishing. I haven't seen such positivity on any feedback and any elements of work that we're currently looking at. And then as you move through it, as you say, that you've introduced the boost funding, and there's so many, again, positive impacts that the boost funding has had and is having on our communities moving forward. And then, as you say, at the end there is the half summer activity programme. And there's picture after picture after picture of young people and families benefiting from the support of this council. And Rebecca, you sat here as well in the corner, and we do thank you, because that was a wonderful scheme delivered in a very, very short period of time. So I don't know what more to say. Any member? Matthew?
Yeah, and like yourself, Leader, I want to add my thanks to all the team in communities for the work they do, but also to commend Aniela's commitment to going out to do a review. We said we would do this, and not only has she done the review, there's some great feedback, and as you said, I think the member feedback in particular, to get 90% positive responses is quite remarkable in any survey that you've seen, and I think with that commitment having been made, we look forward to the hubs prospering over the remaining period of this administration, and more power to their elbow.
Thanks, Matthew. Mick?
Well, I just feel a lot has been said, but I just feel I need to add my comments, because I'm absolutely sort of it's difficult to find adjectives to describe just how pleasing this report is, and to commend the work of Aniela and the team and the communities team, because when you look at it, some of the things that have been achieved against the background of sort of unprecedented obstacles with the pandemic and everything else, it really is a wonder we would be spectacularly happy if we'd have achieved half of this. And when you look at what has been achieved, and in some cases in a very short space of time, I mean, you talk about the HAF programme, to deliver that in the way that it was delivered in such a short time period is just absolutely fantastic. But beyond that, I mean, and when you look at the comments on the hubs and all that, it's clear that the hubs are now embedded in a fundamental part of our strategy to engage in the community and some of the things that have been achieved there. And I mean, the members in the hubs, fair play to them, because they've grasped the opportunity there that there is for us to sort of feed down and into the community. So there's examples there of what we've been able to do when we do engage with the community. And I'm sure, I mean, when you look at all the volunteers and everybody who's been involved in that, and they've been encouraged by our communities team, across the whole range of different things, the schools, the activities, the health and well-being, the mental health initiatives and all that. It's just an absolutely fabulous report, and it's I'm pleased that we are here to be able to note it with pleasure.
Thanks, Mick. So if any members haven't read them already, I would encourage them to read the parents' feedback on page 62 as well. And I won't read them out now, but there's some wonderful warm comments of the parents of the kids that really gained so much from the summer activities. So I think Aniela, moving forward, you're in close liaison now as well for the next phase of delivery with the parish councils, because I know there's some certain parish councils that want to get embedded further with us as a district council, isn't there? And do even more than we already are doing. And I know that's a priority for the next 12 months. So, Aniela, what are we asked to do here? We're just asked to note this report, aren't we? Yeah. So now, just before we go out, so just to Cabinet colleagues, before we seek comments from other members, the Cabinet's asked to note the work of the community service, which we have, and we've also been asked to note the evaluation of the community hubs and agree that the continuation of the current model. So, any members not on Cabinet wish to add anything? Darren, who's first? Councillor Karen Walton.
Thank you, Chair. I too would like to add my congratulations to all the officers and thank them for all their hard work in providing all the wonderful events and food for families in the borough, and to also thank the government for providing the funding for the HAF project in the first place, and to enable families in our borough to enjoy all the facilities that we have. I would just like to ask Aniela, the Cabinet member, just to respond to some of the comments from certain comments from councillors on the feedback for the community hubs, and how would she like to address some of the issues concerning some of the members, such as comments such as decisions made without discussions and not wanting to attend meetings, silenced, and not all areas receive a fair or equal proportion of attention. I'd just like to know, were very positive comments, but there were some negative comments as well, and I'd just like to hear from Aniela what her comments would be to how to address some of the concerns that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walton, for your questions. I've already discussed with the officers some of the responses to the questionnaire, and that's something that we're going to work through, but that is not my decision. That's the reason that the hubs are autonomous. That's for the hubs to, I suppose, kind of discuss between themselves. Maybe the chairs could raise it, put it on the agenda, and ask members if they feel engaged, why they don't feel engaged. There is a comment about members not knowing when the meetings are. That is something that I've discussed with officers. But in terms of the wider points, that's something that the hubs will need to discuss and, I suppose, thrash out themselves if they've got issues.
Thanks, Daniela. And just on the points that Councillor Walton raised about the funding as well, I think it's also fair to point out at this point that it was the administration that kick-started the Holiday Hunger Scheme by funding it ourselves directly. We've been funding, Karen, the Holiday Hunger Scheme for 2.5 years, and the government intervened and provided some small additional support during the summer. So, but because we already had the facilities in the process and the plans in place, it was relatively easy for us to kick in straight away.
Thank you. I understand that from the start I've been involved with the Holiday Hunger Scheme, but this particular scheme we did receive some extra funding from the government, which enabled more children to take part, which is what it's all about, so that every child, if they need any sort of help, receive it in the borough. Thank you.
Well, yeah, it wasn't, the government only didn't, it wasn't, our scheme in South Ribble, Karen, I completely agrees for every child. The government scheme, they were trying to limit it to just children on free school meals, and we made a strategic decision that we invited every child in the borough, and so we agree, but long may it continue, with or without government funding, that scheme will continue in South Ribble. Any other comments, Darren? Councillor Jackie Alty. Jackie, I think you might be muted. I can't hear you. No, is the link? Jackie, if you go very close to the mic, it may work. Yeah, we had this trouble last time, haven't we?
Does this work?
Oh, that. Don't worry, there's only a few people seeing that happen on YouTube. And do not worry twice, because it hasn't been recorded, we promise, Jackie. Carry on.
Okay, thanks for that instruction, and clearly I'll use it in future. I just wanted to comment that the report, the amount of work that's been undertaken, the amount of children that have been reached is phenomenal. The fact that it was set up long before any government money was actually added, you know, I think it's amazing what's actually occurred. But I just want to reflect on how sad it is that we actually are in this position, and that the national infrastructure is such that we have so many children in need and so many families that fall outside of any welfare that's remaining. So I want to say it's great, and while I want to say yes, thank you very much, government, for providing funds for the HAF programme, it's an indictment that we're in this position. So thank you very much to all the communities team. They've done a wonderful job, and continue to work well with the councillors. It's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great point, Jackie. And I think it's a point that we've all noted, is that the pandemics, by their very nature, always attack the most vulnerable in society and the most needy. And you only need to look at the number of parcels and meals that we provided and how that significantly ramped up when the pandemic hit. But because of the early intervention of the officers and the structures that we had in place, we were luckily in the position where we could deal with that demand very, very quickly. As I say, when COVID kicked off, this entire ground floor nearly of the Civic Centre was an almighty food bank, and there was demands coming from left, right and centre, which we managed to support. So thanks for your comments, Jackie. Darren, anyone else? Councillor Alan Ogilvie.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the cabinet member mentioned that the Youth Council had now been established and had 30 members, which is good news. But could we get a bit more information on where do they meet, how often do they meet, what have they been discussing? I think it would be very useful for us relative oldies to understand what they're discussing and what the outcomes of those debates are. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ogilvie, for your question. I think that the best there will be a report coming forward. It's very, very early stages, but I've just been told by the officer that we can write to you where we're currently up to, but we will bring a report to Cabinet once it becomes more established.
So thanks, Aniela. And Alan, and I know Aniela and Councillor Trafford, who's heading this up, the Youth Council, is that he's written to the group leaders today, for example, setting up some debating societies and political question and answer sessions that will happen in the new year. But it might be helpful if Councillor Trafford wants to just jump in there.
Yeah, thanks. As the Cabinet member said, there's going to be a report further on this, but I can give some details now. The meeting's several times a month. I think it's every other week at the moment, and then there'll be special meetings as well. So at the moment, we're trying to keep it as autonomous as possible for the young people involved, and they chose as their own priorities within that has been addressing period poverty, addressing knife crime, and addressing veterans and neglect for veterans, and making sure that people who have left the armed forces are supported entirely. So they're working with the Veterans Cafe in Leyland on that, and they're starting to do that. Everyone seems extremely empowered. I think it's going really well. As Councillor Foster mentioned then, there's looking at being a leaders' question time with each of the group leaders, and then if that goes well, hopefully trying to do a national one as well. So there's lots of debate that goes on, and then there's lots of sort of proactive involvement in the community as well. So I've met with the Youth Council once, and that was to go to the Knife Angel sculpture in Blackburn. So we put a trip on there, went and visited that. If anyone doesn't know what that is, it's a 20-foot sculpture made of 100,000 knives that were handed in on an amnesty, with literature there as well. And then they came back to the Civic Centre, discussed that. How did they feel? Did they think that it's thought-provoking, and so forth? So I think it's going rather well, really. And there'll be a further report coming to Cabinet, I believe, on that. And I'm more than happy as well, just for the record, to answer any further questions going forward if anyone wants to contact me or even input and say what they think might be useful. But yeah, I hope that provides some additional information, and then we'll have the further report as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Matthew. That's great stuff. And again, thanks from the Cabinet for the work that you're doing. Again, this was a new role, if you remember, that we established as lead member for our young people in the borough. And again, it's going very, very well. Any other questions? So it's Councillor Damien Bretherton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate the officers for the work undertaken on Agenda Item 5. It was a comment I wanted to make, actually, and it's addressed to Aniela Belinsky-Gelder. And I was just wondering, with the idea of getting the bids in from the community hubs, would the idea be, for example, if some of the ideas could be shared around other wards, because certain, like the Western parishes, for example, might come up with a really good idea. Would the purpose be to share those ideas around the other community wards, so that the whole of the borough could benefit from those ideas? One particular idea that I found fascinating and very interested in was the chair of the Penwitham Hub. They made a bid for a deer statue welcome feature. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. And when I read the Boost Fund application form, it almost reflected the comments that myself and Matt Campbell have been making in our community hub. We've put forward suggestions of a welcome sign. Walton Park, we feel that it needs its own identity. Since the Crossborough Link Road has gone through, certain of our elderly residents have felt a bit socially isolated, mainly because they felt they couldn't get out to the homes because there wasn't a pedestrian crossing there, etc. But our idea was, and we've had several comments from some of our residents, that they would like a welcome sign and they've pointed to the roundabout on the Crossborough Link Road that joins up with Carwood Way. Basically, it's a blank canvas. There's nothing there at the moment apart from a bit of greenery. It's near our elderly residents in the old people's homes on the caravan park. We've discussed it. We've thought about it. Nothing's really come of it, but I think now.
Damien, can I just interrupt you there? It's the pay. Yeah, you're making a bid here, and that it's not the appropriate place to make the bid. But I'll just let Angela. Let me ask Councillor Bielinski to come in and respond to you now, Damien. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Damien, for your question. So the answer to your first question about sharing project ideas, there's already 2 opportunities for that to happen. The first one is that each hub looks at everyone else's action plan. So in this report, you can see all the other hubs' action plans, and you can also see their Boost Fund project. All the information is in the report. And that's one way that you can see what everyone else is doing. The other is that the chairs and vice chairs meet, I think it's every 2 or 3 months. And in that meeting, the chairs and vice chairs all update each other on the projects, the Boost Funds, and what they're doing in their area. So that's another opportunity there where you could cross-fertilise, I suppose, in terms of your project ideas. If you need anything else other than that, then maybe you need to have a chat with the chair of your hub, which I think is Chris Lomax. And I would suggest that proposal that you've just made, you take that to the hub and you ask the chair and vice chair, and you ask the hub for that project, which sounds perfectly reasonable to me, but it's not a decision that I make because I've distributed the decision making down to each hub. So the chairs, vice chairs and all the members make that decision. But there's no reason why your hub couldn't put that proposal forward, just like Penwitham have. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Can I come back, Chair?
As long as it's not a bid, Damien.
No, it's not a bid. I'd just like to thank Councillor Bielinski-Gelder for those comments, and we will look forward to putting in a similar bid to as Penwitham has done. And we look forward to that being favourably considered, with an added twist that we also, well, it's part of the bid, I suppose, but we have discussed, Councillor Matt Campbell and I, that possibly the local school children would like to design the Welcome to Walton Park sign that we intend to do in the bid. So we look forward to discussing that at our next Community Hub meeting with the Chair and Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Damien. It's Christmas. I'll give you some leeway. And as I sit on that Community Hub, I look forward to receiving it, Damien. Councillor Colin Sharples.
Hey, thank you, Chair. As a chair of one of the hubs, I'd like to just say a few words. And first of all, thank Aniela for the report, and Rebecca and Jennifer and the team. They work extremely hard. Aniela mentioned the meetings we have as hub chairs and vice chairs. It's actually more monthly than 2 monthly. And I think right at the very start, it was hard to imagine just how successful or not this thing would be. And I can say that I remember the very first meeting, which was where we all sat down together as her chairs and vice chairs, and I wouldn't say it was flat, but it was a bit slow to get going, and it was just a bit not sure which direction we were going in. The latest meeting was last week at the Fox Lane Sports Club, and the difference now is phenomenal. It's massively successful. The enthusiasm from all those present at that meeting it's unbelievable compared to the first meeting. Everybody's chomping at the bit to say what their particular hub is doing. Everybody takes ideas from that. We all share that. We share the chairmanship of the meetings each month. It changes. And looking back to the first meeting and thinking, will this be successful? Which way is this going to go? And you look at it now and it's a phenomenal success, and it's a real pleasure to be involved in the whole process. And I think our congratulations go to the full team, because it's been really good, and thank you very much.
Thanks for those kind words, Colin. Right, the final hand we have up is Councillor Michael Green, and then we'll close this item. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Just a quick query to Councillor Bawinski-Gelder or possibly to Councillor Trafford regarding the Youth Council. So you mentioned that there are 30 members. I just wondered, how were those members appointed? Were they self-selected or were they elected in some way? Yeah, if you just have a little bit of clarity on that would be helpful, please. Thank you.
Matthew, do you want to answer that? Sorry, Councillor Trafford, do you want to answer that, mate?
We've worked with schools, so we've reached out to several schools in the area and said through your own processes normally involved with school councils, who the members of them are normally elected, and people through the school councils and schools have got involved. But we've deliberately made a decision as well that we're open to absolutely anyone attending. The problem with school councils is, as wonderful as they are, is that very often the same faces tend to attend, and there might be people that maybe people like me, basically, of what school councils will be. It's the people who are naturally quite outspoken, whereas we're trying to maybe engage people that might have an interest in politics, democracy, whatever, but maybe don't even realise it, which is very often. So it's open to absolutely anyone, but the way that we've recruited has been through years 7 to 10 at secondary school for the time being. And then that's been through engaging with schools where we've been recruiting people at the moment. So I hope that answers it.
Thanks, Matthew. Great stuff. So we're asked to note this report, and I think we note this report with pleasure, Aniela. And let's just to close off, please all remember as well the feedback that we got from the peer review. So this is from the councils up and down the country who actually highlighted the work of the communities team and the work that we're doing with the community hubs as an exemplar, and took a lot of detail away from that to look to try and replicate this up and down the country. So congratulations. So I think we note with pleasure, Aniela. Or is there a decision, is there as well? Sorry. So there is a decision to be made, and that decision is, do we endorse the, can you just read it out, Aniela, quickly, what the decision is?
Yeah, the decision is that we agree the continuation of the current model. Yeah.
So Aniela's proposed that we continue with the current model. I'm happy to second that. Everyone in favour? Unanimous. Right, good stuff. Right, agenda item 6, it's Councillor Bawinski-Gelder again, and it's the Moss Side Community Centre update. Aniela.
Thanks again, Chair. I'm extremely pleased to be presenting this report to the Cabinet this evening. Moss Side Community Centre has been on the Leyland and Farrington hub for a few years in terms of parking and lighting, as well as antisocial behaviour issues. However, in spring this year, a few members of the Leyland and Farrington Community Hub decided to run a separate task group to establish what the community wanted and what could be done to support Moss Side Community Centre moving forwards. The task group decided to run a full consultation, giving local people the chance to say what they'd like to see the centre being used for. The consultation comprised of an online survey, which was open for a month of June, telephone survey and in-person events held at Moss Side Community Centre on the 3rd, 4th and 5th of June. Of the respondents, 64% said they did not currently use the centre, and 24% said there was no suitable activities. So that was really good from our point of view, because it meant we got a new group of responses from people which didn't already use the centre. People responded with ideas of what they'd like to see at the centre, and 67% said that they would like to see more activities for children. 49% said the community shop or cafe. 48% said activities for the elderly, and 46% said that they'd like to see it being used for private hire, for birthdays and christenings and things like that. Excitingly, 25% of the respondents said they would be prepared to volunteer. So that creates loads of opportunities for local people to get involved in supporting their own community. With these results in mind, the task group met to discuss the potential opportunities and came up with the proposals presented in the report. Parameters set out by the Member for Assets, Councillor Tomlinson, we understood the community centre spending needs to be sustainable and also improve the quality of life for the community locally. Therefore, we've tried to tackle some of the underlying historical issues. So our proposals to the Cabinet include retaining management of the community centre. So the council will be the main body which runs and organises the community centre, including a South Ribble Borough Council staff caretaking. All current users will continue to have access to the building, improvements to the external lighting and a look at the current CCTV provision, signage making it clear the centre belongs to South Ribble Borough Council, and new notice boards to display timetable of usage, availability and contact details for booking. We're also proposing that we include Wi-Fi and broadband connectivity to the community centre and potential usage of a small part of the building by Lancashire Constabulary, which hasn't been confirmed but is being proposed. And as we move forward with these alterations, members are keen to make further improvements depending on footfall to car parking provision and kitchen facilities, which are desperately in need of bringing up to date. And I'm happy to propose the Cabinet discuss this potential for this in the capital costs to be included in the 2022-23 budget under the capital programme. I feel as though this project has previously been difficult to reach agreement on how it should be managed. However, these improvements have come directly out of the consultation results and will go at least some way, I would say, to encouraging the local community back to the facility for the benefit of everyone. So finally, the recommendations on the report are that the Cabinet is recommended to approve the proposals of the task group as listed in paragraphs 25 to 34. Cabinet is recommended to approve the creation of a new 16,000 revenue budget to support the operational management of the community centre, and that the Cabinet is requested to agree to give delegated authority to the Cabinet member Finance, Property and Assets to create a charging structure, general conditions for community use and determine staffing requirements. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Aniela. And again, a thorough report. I think it's fair to say that the facilities down at Moss Side, along with the play park, has been subject to significant underinvestment for many years by this authority, and it's about time the nettle was grasped, so to speak, and we did something about it. Clearly, I know as part of the payment improvement programme moving forward was submit a significant investment, about £200,000, I think, Matthew, isn't it, into the play park on the capital programme. And then, so the next issue that you had, and I know you've been dealing with this for about 18 months, was the community centre itself. It looks tired, it needs investment, there wasn't a clear structure for its management, and it wasn't serving ultimately the best, the needs of the community. And that's not me saying that, that's the community saying that with the consultation feedback that you've got. And again, it's pleasing to see that we've used the consultation feedback as the basis for the recommendations moving forward for how we do manage the facility, which is really pleasing. Look, it's not been without its controversy, this site, we know that, so this is about dusting down, it's just about moving forward and hopefully delivering a great community asset. And I also note your comments, Aniela, about speaking to Councillor Tomlinson and looking at if there's an additional investment required, we move it into the next year's capital programme as part of the improvements. So, any questions for Aniela? Councillor Tomlinson.
Thanks, Chair. Seeing as I'm mentioned in the recommendations, I ought to say something. First of all, I'd like to formally second the recommendations, if that's allowed, and I'm not declaring an interest, seeing as I'm in the recommendations. But I want to echo your comments, really. This has been something of a thorn in the side of the Leyland and Farrington Hub, and before that, the Leyland Neighbourhood Forum. And now, finally, we've got a strategy based around what the people of Moss Side are telling us, not just on what the loudest voices, and there have been some loud voices from all different angles around Moss Side Community Centre, but this is what the community are telling us. So we can move forward with some confidence around the recommendations of the task group. I do want to thank the people who are on the task group, because I know sometimes sitting on a task group can be very time consuming and an erroneous thing to take on. So thanks to those people. And I really look forward to the suggestions for capital spend in the community centre next year. I shall look forward to receiving those with some interest.
I've heard a rumour, Matthew, they're on the way already. So any of the members on Cabinet? No. Any member not on Cabinet? Councillor Colin Sharples.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Chair, I think as a council we have listened to what local residents have to say about their community centre. And after years of neglect, it is time we ensure that the centre is put to good use in accordance with the wishes of the local community. Going forward, I think we have the opportunity to invest in this asset, not only in terms of infrastructure, but also in terms of giving the community the opportunity to decide how it is used and how it is managed. I think there's still a lot of work to do, and I'm hoping the working group will be able to continue. I'll be asking the Leyland Farrington Hub if they'll support the continuation of that working group. And I'd also like to thank my fellow working group councillors, Councillor Mrs Mary Green and Councillor Jane Bell, for their efforts and their time. And a special thanks to Rebecca Heap and the team, because they put a lot of time and a lot of effort in, especially with the consultation. It wasn't an easy process, but we got there in the end, and I think it's a very, very exciting point in time for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colin, for your kind words, particularly for the officers that have done an awful lot to support this as well. Councillor Michael Green.
Thanks, Chairman. Can I begin by thanking Councillor Bolinski-Gelder for her report and for her recommendations. I took part in speaking to a number of residents during the consultation, and the report reflects some of the comments that they made. And I'd like to thank all residents of the Moss Side area who took part in that consultation, which is of course helpful and gave us some really helpful views which form the basis of this moving forward. I also support the views of the current users, and I think it's important to provide for them as well. And I think there's 5 bullet points which summarise their views, and all of which I would support. The only caveat I put on that is whilst, yes, clearly broadband and Wi-Fi is required for the centre, it's a note of sadness that both broadband and Wi-Fi and CCTV, etc., were provided previously by Moss Side Community Forum before the council took over the running of the centre again. But hopefully we can get that back in place as soon as possible. I support the recommendations which are set out. I support Councillor Bolinski-Gelder in this, and of her suggestion regarding capital funding and investment moving forwards, which is something which we've been proposing for some time. So yeah, happy to work with you on this moving forwards, and look forward to the changes happening and to a better centre for the benefit of the residents of Moss Side and beyond. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Michael. Any other comments from members? No, there's no further indication of anyone wishing to speak. So, Aniela, we had the recommendations there quickly. So, Cabinet is recommended. Do you want to quickly just go through them again before we vote on it?
Yeah, so I'll do them again. The Cabinet is recommended to approve the proposals of the task group as listed in paragraphs 25 to 34. The Cabinet is recommended to approve the creation of a new £16,000 revenue budget to support the operational management of the community centre. And the Cabinet is requested to agree to give delegated authority to the Cabinet member Matthew Tomlinson for finance, property and assets to create a charging structure, general conditions for community use and determining staff requirements. Thank you.
Thanks, Aniela. And Councillor Tomlinson seconded that. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Agenda item 7, the Leyland Town Deal Stage 2 designs. Councillor Bill Evans to present this item.
Thank you, Chair. I'm aware that we've probably been consulted to death with this to date, so I'm going to be brief tonight. Recently we've been out to consultation. We've consulted with the market traders, businesses on Huff Lane, residents just off Huff Lane, the emergency services, members. We've had a number of briefing sessions. In fact, we were a victim of our own success at one night when hundreds of people turned up at the British Commercial Vehicle Museum, and we had to hold another consultation a week later. But this report really is only for noting tonight on the stage 2 designs. If you look later on in the report, there's 15 slides that again I'm not going to go through. You've all seen them, especially those who turned up on the consultations. One bit of news I can tell you is we've got a new chair for the Town Deal Board, and it's Charles Adcock, who's the Deputy Lord Lieutenant of Lancashire, who's agreed to chair the group, which is a coup for us, really. But other than that, I think that's it. Also at the end of the report, there's the consultation responses from all the people that did turn up, and we're currently working through them at the moment. That's it, Chair, thanks. I'll answer any questions.
Yeah, cheers, Bill. I suppose it's fair to say, isn't it, that the town deal process is a little bit peculiar. And members will all be aware of this on Cabinet, that this is dictated to us, the process, and we're having to make it, as the accountable body, work within the council structure. So I'm not going to mislead anyone here. It is challenging, particularly some of the timeframes. However, Bill and the team are doing a wonderful job with this. So where we're up to at the moment is we've got these outline designs. We're now trying to make the designs meet the requirements of the funding that's available. I think it's fair to say, Bill, you're expecting some further meetings with the town board on this in January, and then further final proposals will then come back for the Cabinet to consider.
Yes, Chair, there is a meeting due for mid-January, but there's also a response back in February for another consultation to show people what we've took on board and incorporated into the designs. There's been quite a few members of the public were critical about some of the ideas that we had, so we're going to have to adapt to suit. But yeah, it's exciting times, and we're on with it. Thanks, Chair.
No, good stuff. Thanks, Bill. And I think the final decision has to be made by about March, I think, isn't it, when we submit the funding case. And just for absolute clarity, although there's a town board in place that the government structured, but ultimately any final decisions do need to come back to Cabinet and Council here in South Ribble as the accountable body. And I think we're expecting that in March or by March. So great stuff, Bill. Any comments from any colleagues? Councillor McTitherington?
Well, I'm happy to note that. I know that Bill said that there were people who were critical, but having attended a number of the consultation meetings during the process, there were a number of people who also were very favourable with some of the possibilities that were there. I think me and others have previously mentioned the previous master plans, and so we've been waiting a long time. As you say, Leader, is that we've now got to sort of look at the designs and make them fit the criteria, to get the monies from government. But certainly at this stage, happy to note those designs, and recognise that there has been extensive consultation, and the views of the people who attended the consultation meetings have been taken into account and will be taken into account moving forward.
Yeah, thanks, Mick. Councillor Tomlinson.
Yeah, thanks. Like many Leyland members, certainly I've attended more than one consultation, and I had the misfortune to be at the one where hundreds of people turned up when we were expecting dozens of people, frankly. But I do want to thank Bill's team for putting on the secondary event, which we promised to do, and that was put on within a week, and was over a much longer period of time and in a bigger room. And certainly I think the feedback from that one was much more positive. In terms of the consultation responses, frankly, I think most Leyland members would have been able to write that report themselves. If you've got your finger on the pulse, you know what Leyland people think of Leyland Town Centre, and there isn't a lot to surprise you in there. But it is interesting to see which one of these, this suite of possibilities, shall we call them that, because some of these things will happen and some of them won't, but clearly some of them are far more popular or have a greater buy-in than others. If you look through the responses, we know that the proposed building on Churchill Way was less popular with the public than upgrades to the public realm way. And again, whilst that may not have come as a great surprise to us all, it is really useful to have that. We've captured that information. And if we refer back to the previous report about Moss Side Community Centre, moving forwards with ideas that have already got the backing of the public, the demonstrable backing of the public, is a really great way to work, I think. And so when we do get to deliver some of these things, we'll be able to point to the consultation responses and say that this was what the people of Leyland said they wanted.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. I know Mark Lester and he's sat with us here tonight, and I know him and his team are probably looking at a very short Christmas break now, having to get this ready basically for early January, so that with some firm decisions can be made. As I say, it's a really challenging time frame. It's also a really challenging process, but you can't look a gift horse in the mouth when there's 25 million quid's worth of grant on offer for Leyland. So we'll move forward with it. And as you say, the consultation was wonderful. Yes, there was a negative associated with the commercial museum because so many people turned up, but I think this is the first time I've been a councillor where there's been too many people turned up to a consultation. So it is a positive, and we ran the second event here at the Civic Centre, and it was an overwhelming success as well. Any other questions? No. So members not on cabinet then. Councillor Michael Green.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Thank you for that. Of course, this is a wonderful opportunity for us to make a real difference in Leyland, and our thanks go to the government and particularly our current and our former MP who have made this happen. But it is almost once in a lifetime, or at least once in a generation opportunity to make a real difference for the town, and some of the plans are exciting. And it's nice to see a big turnout of residents, albeit the problems that did take place on that evening at the museum. Certainly in terms of the residents I've spoken to, that seems to be the overwhelming negative, was the building on Churchill Way. And if we don't have sufficient funds, whilst 25 million is a lot of money, it may not be able to fund everything that we want to do. And if we don't have sufficient for everything, maybe that building could be left out of the scheme and brought forward potentially at a later date if we feel that that's appropriate. But certainly I think you need to do something to improve those links between Chapel Brow and the railway station and the rest of the town centre, which I think could do with further improvement. The other point which was brought up with me certainly was the one that's been considered in the past, but whether or not we should either pedestrianise the town centre completely or at least make it one-way traffic, and whether the pros and cons of one-way traffic should be considered a little further, which I can understand that point being put forward. But yeah, happy to support this moving forwards, and let's see where we can get to and make a real difference for Leyland and then spilling out across surrounding areas of the borough. Thanks, Chairman. And as I may not speak again, may I wish you and colleagues and officers a very happy, peaceful, and most importantly, safe Christmas. Take care.
Yeah, thanks for your kind comments, Michael. Just on the highways, clearly you're in a very powerful position, being on the cabinet at Lancashire County Council, to speak to your highways colleagues, Michael, and it may be helpful because you might get some more traction than we sometimes do. But I know the officers are looking and have looked extensively with the consultants about the traffic flows on Huff Lane and the car parking, and that forms part of the final recommendations that will come before us. I would point out to all members, though, that the funding for these town funds, these town deals, isn't without controversy. I think it was 98% into Conservative MPs' constituencies across the country, and I'm also aware that was that is subject, to an ongoing judicial review. So the money isn't yet in the bank. Clearly, the judicial review process has to be concluded to ensure that it was lawful. And there are a number of senior barristers in the country that think the Conservative government awarding billions of pounds to Conservative constituencies is perhaps slightly unlawful. However, as I said earlier, we won't look a gift horse in the mouth. And when the money is secured, and it's not secured yet, but when the money is secured, clearly that will benefit the residents of Leyland. We'll make sure it does. Any other comments from anyone? So, Councillor Alan Ogilvie.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, as a Leyland councillor, I'm very pleased to see this moving forward at last after many, many years of effort on this. The consultation responses were interesting. I mean, it was quite clear that the overwhelming majority of respondents were keen on seeing improvements in Leyland, which wouldn't come as any great surprise. There was a couple of contentious issues that I noticed. The issue about additional housing within the town centre appeared to be a bit more contentious than I expected it to be. And our old nemesis, parking, which just never seems to go away and will always turn up. Just one query, a clarification for me, please. The plans that have been put forward and consulted on, is that based purely on the 20 or potential £25 million from government? Or are they based on the £32 million that was in a report that came to council a number of months ago? Because clearly you can't really do one without the other if the additional external funding is actually going to come through. You need to have an integrated plan. So I'm just looking for a bit of clarification on that.
Chair, can I? Back to your point earlier on about the consultation. When we did the first stage consultation, we had very few people showing any interest, and the ones that we spoke to were saying, yeah, it'll never happen, you know, nobody ever spends anything on Leyland, and etc. As we've got to these stage two designs, the amount of people that have got interested and perhaps thinking, well, it looks like something is going to happen, and that we've been a bit of a victim of our own success. We're glad that too many people turned up for that consultation. We learn for next time, and we probably have to stage it differently. What happened is we leafleted most of Leyland, and that's why so many people turned up. So yeah, we're glad that more people are getting involved. As regarding the highways and the public realm, we've got an issue at the moment because our ideas for the town deal are slightly different to Lancashire County Council's ideas, especially on Chapel Brow. And the County Council officers don't seem to want to budge on anything. So I'd be grateful, Councillor Green, if you could get involved and see if you could do something at your end. As far as the one-waying is concerned, as part of the stage one consultations, the suggestion was to one-way it. And again, we've listened to the public, who the vast majority of them didn't like that idea. The emergency services didn't like the idea either, because if you had a fire on Off Lane, the fire engine would have had to gone all the way down to McDonald's roundabout and then come back again, which it all takes time. So there were a few comments like that we've took into consideration, and stage two designs, we're leaving it as two-way. We've also had suggestions about taking the parking off Lane. If you did that, you just speed the traffic up because there'd be no obstructions to it. And we're also getting suggestions that there's not enough parking on Off Lane, so no matter which way you look at it, we can't win. Everybody wants to park just outside the shop that they're going to attend, and it just isn't going to happen. As part of the plans here, we're going to increase the amount of parking spaces available in the town centre. So one way or another, you know, they're going to be better off. They just might have to walk a little bit further. As far as the housing is concerned, yeah, it's as part of the deal. The government were quite specific. They wanted us to concentrate on retail commercial and residential. So the residential bit is an integral part of it. And as you know, we've got a shortage of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, and this will be an ideal scheme to do something about that. I think that's it. The costings, it's based on the higher amount, but again, we are looking at the costings with a fine-tooth comb at the moment. £25 million 12, 18 months ago would have bought us a lot more than £25 million buys now. So we are delving through them with offices and trying to see where we can make some savings. I think that's about it, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Bill, for that detailed response. And I think it's fair to say, that there's a lot of the law of unintended consequences. A lot of these schemes, for example, the risk at the moment, it appears, sits with South Ribble Borough Council. Now, this isn't our scheme, so the risk clearly needs to be sitting with the government. And if the risk does sit with South Ribble Borough Council, then South Ribble Borough Council needs to be absolutely satisfied of the robustness, shall we say, of the financial models that are being put forward. So this is something Mark and the team and yourself, Bill, are working on as we speak. And as I say, we'll be coming back to us in the new year with final fixed proposals, including the business plan. Any further questions, Dan, from anyone? No? Right, okay. I think we're just asked to note that report, Bill, won't we? So it's duly noted. So moving on, we have an urgent item, agenda item 8. And this item is agreed as urgent by the Mayor and the Chair of the Scrutiny Committee in accordance with the Constitution. Let me just read this out. The reason that the matter is being treated as urgent is that we've only literally just received the cost information to allow the contract to be awarded, and the contract procedure rules need to be waived for the project to be delivered to the set challenging timescales. So, Councillor Matthew Tomlinson is presenting this item.
Thanks, Lee. You took me by surprise then, because on my papers it says it's agenda item 10. But I'm happy to speak to it now.
It's that urgent. It hadn't decided what number it was.
It's that urgent. It's that urgent. It's moved up the agenda 2 places while we've been sat here.
I wanted to come in by the minutes to start with, but I fobbed it off. So
members will recall that we did agree in the budget last year to put some money into Vernon Cairns Sports Club for a refurbishment and some improvements there. This is around the fact it's all linked to the housing development up there and some really exciting opportunities for us to do some sports development work down there. You'll also recall at the last cabinet meeting we agreed an uplift of the investment that we were prepared to spend down there alongside an outside body promising us £50,000 worth of extra funding. So all really exciting stuff. I know people don't like urgent items coming forward, and no doubt we'll get some pushback on this, which I completely understand. But when you're working with a cricket club, you are tied to a certain timetable, because we can't delay the cricket season to allow for our procurement processes. So the cricket club are really keen that we get on with this work and try and get it finished before the cricket season starts in April. We have been working with a couple of potential providers for the work that's needed there. They're both Northwest based companies, one of whom has already provided us with a quote, and we are expecting the other quote by the end of this week. Sadly, the cabinet timetable doesn't allow us to fit into that timetable, really, because by the time the next cabinet meets, it'll be too late. One option was just to say we do this as an emergency decision and let the leader take this decision in private almost, and then report it afterwards. But, we much prefer to do things as openly as we can. So we did decide, despite the very lateness of the report, to bring it to Cabinet tonight. So what I'm asking for is that Cabinet agrees to a waiver of the relevant contract procedure rules, that any change or scope of works to spend within the approved budget levels are delegated to the Director of Commercial Services alongside myself, and that the approval of the contract award is delegated to the exec member, i.e. me. We do, as I say, we are very keen to get on with this work. The cricket club themselves are very keen to get on with it, and time ticks on, and the seasons change, and the cricket season will start in April, and it'll be a huge inconvenience to the cricket club, and potentially damaging to the reputation of this council if we haven't done the works that we said we will promise by then. And so I'm happy to move those recommendations.
Thanks, Matthew, and I'm more than happy to second those proposals, because you said we may cop some criticism for bringing a late urgent item, but local government, central government is always criticised for taking too long to make decisions at times as well. And there's no reason, in my view, that we don't just get on with this. As I say, Cabinet has already approved the expenditure and the investment down at the cricket club. Clearly, the cricket club has to close down, Matthew, for 3 months, up to 3 months while this work's undertaken. Let's wake up and smell the coffee here. It's December, January, February, March, so the 3 months that is most appropriate for these works to be undertaken. And the officers should actually be congratulated, because, along with yourself, they've worked tirelessly to get this to a position where we can start in January with Cabinet's approval. Again, it's the exception rather than the rule. We don't like to use the waivers, but the waivers are there to be used in exceptional circumstances, Matthew, as has been proposed tonight. So as I say, I'm happy. I think it's more than reasonable, the request that's been made. It's in the best interests of the local community, it's in the best interests of Vernon Carras, and therefore it's in the best interest of the council that we agree to this waiver and get on with the work. So any comments from any other colleagues? Councillor McTitherington?
Well, I know that Councillor Tomlinson said that we might, cop for some sort of criticism here, but I think anybody who reads the report, and for the reasons that you've just outlined, it is sometimes you've got to make decisions that are of an urgent nature, and I think the explanation there and what's been supplemented by what you said, I think most people members will accept that on occasions urgent decisions have got to be taken, and there's got to be those waivers. I'm on record as saying that they should be used as a last resort, and when I was the chair of scrutiny, I stated that on a number of occasions. But this is one of those situations where an urgent decision needs to be made, and time is not on our side. The work needs to be carried out. So under those circumstances, there's a justification for the waiver, and that's why I would support it.
Thanks, mate. Okay, any comments to the members of Cabinet? No. Any comments from members not on Cabinet? Councillor Karen Walton.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, it wouldn't be amiss of me if I didn't say that I'm not happy with this decision tonight, and I understand the justification for the reasons, and really it would have been better to have a little bit more notice, but I understand the reason why. I'm not against the reason why, and again, you've said it's the exception, not the rule, but at the moment we seem to be getting a lot of exceptions rather than the rules. And I would ask that Councillor Tomlinson, he said that there will be quotes coming in for the work. Would it be possible for all members to be made aware of what the quotes were as soon as you receive them, so that we can all just have a look at them, so that we can all be informed of what money is involved and the process and the timescales of the work? Thank you.
Yeah, obviously, Councillor Mrs Walton, once I sign this off, then it becomes a matter of public record. It's not hidden or, secreted away in a cupboard somewhere where nobody can see it. But whilst it's commercially sensitive, of course, it can't be public record. But once the deal's agreed and I take the exec decision, it'll be published, and people will be able to see it.
Thanks, Matthew. I must admit, Karen, I wouldn't mind you writing to me actually with the evidence of your statement there about this not being the exception, that this happens quite often, because I don't recognise that at all. So I would be interested if you'd write to me with the examples, and then we can discuss them with you, because, you know, I don't recall us making a number of urgent decisions or waivers without justification, but most certainly I don't recall urgent items coming to Cabinet like this. So I would be interested in if you wrote to me with that evidence, and we can discuss it at our leaders' meetings. Any other? Councillor Alan Ogilvie.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's really just a comment. I noticed the comments in the report about the 250k budget, and if the quotes come in above that figure, then there will be an attempt at value engineering, presumably to stick within that original budget. Sadly, I would have to say that the track record over the last couple of years in terms of keeping to original budgets is not good. And I wish you luck should both those quotes come out above the 250k.
Thanks for your positive feedback, Alan, and we don't need any luck, because they will come below, because this is a very live negotiation that's taking place, and it's live prices that Mark and Matthew are getting in as we speak. So we don't have the concerns about the budget. The budget pressures have been built into the approved sums already. Any other members, Darren? Right, so that's the conclusion of the debate. Matthew, can you just, because it is an urgent item and I know it's only just been published recently, can you just confirm the recommendations, please?
Yep, so the recommendations to Cabinet are on page 3 of this report. That a waiver of relevant contract procedure rules is granted in line with the South Ribble Borough Council Constitution. That any changes to the scope of works or spend within the approved budget levels are delegated to the Director of Commercial Services in consultation with the Executive Member Finance, Property and Assets, and that approval of the contract award is delegated to the Executive Member.
Thanks, Matthew. I've seconded that. All those in favour? Okay, for the record, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing the contractors on site early January, Mark. No pressure. Right, okay, agenda item 9 is the exclusion of the press and public, and I move that the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that it involves a likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 1 and 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Do I have a second, Mick? Thank you. We don't like doing this, but unfortunately we do have to go into private session now because there's some commercially sensitive information and decisions that we need to make.